Ah, come closer, friend. The fire is warm, the brew is strong, and the armor rack in the corner is making noises it should not be making. That means only one thing: new tier set bonuses. And not just any tier sets. These are the 12.1 Midnight Season 2 tier set bonuses. Every class, every spec, every little bit of chaos, fire, frost, shadow, poison, rage, and questionable decision-making that Blizzard has decided to sow into our armor. Now, before we begin, remember this. These bonuses may change before they go live. Numbers may shift. Effects may be adjusted. Some things may get stronger. Some things may get bonked gently with the balance hammer. And some things may be dragged into a dark room by the developers and never seen again. But for now, we have a very clear look at the design direction. Blizzard says these Season 2 bonuses are meant to be more complex than Season 1. They want them to feel cool, impactful, and more connected to the specs we already play. And perhaps most importantly, they are trying not to reintroduce huge burst spikes after already working to reduce burst damage overall. So, what does that mean? It means these sets are less about one giant explosion every few minutes and more about making your regular rotation feel better, smoother, and more rewarding. Some of these bonuses are simple, some are spicy, some are very strange. And one of them gives Brewmaster Monk a flaming keg smash. So naturally, we will be treating that one with the respect it deserves. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Death Knight. First, we step into the cold graveyard of the Death Knight. And friend, Death Knights are not receiving armor. They are receiving permission. Permission to swing faster. Permission to summon worse things. Permission to remind everyone in the dungeon that death is not a problem. It is a staffing solution. Blood Death Knight. Blood Death Knight starts with more attack speed and a better chance for Crimson Scourge to occur. That means more flow, more consistency, and more of that classic Blood Death Knight feeling where your health bar drops to terrifying levels, then suddenly decides it was only joking. The 4-piece makes Crimson Scourge empower your next death and decay, causing it to deal much more damage, and when you consume that effect, you also gain extra critical strike chance for a short time. This feels very Blood. Stand in your zone, control the battlefield, turn danger into fuel, and if the healer panics, that is merely part of the class fantasy. Frost Death Knight. Frost Death Knight is all about Remorseless Winter. Each time Remorseless Winter damages an enemy, you gain a stacking effect that increases attack speed and improves Icy Death Torrent damage. Then the 4-piece makes Remorseless Winter deal damage more frequently and makes that stacking effect last longer. This is clean. This is icy. This is the kind of set bonus that says, I hope you enjoy standing near me because winter has arrived and it is not taking requests. Frost looks like it may feel smoother, faster, and more relentless, which, honestly, is exactly what Frost should feel like. Unholy Death Knight. Unholy is where things get properly unpleasant. Your Magus of the Dead and Lord of the Dead stop casting their usual spells and instead cast stronger, darker versions. Then the 4-piece makes those upgraded spells hit much harder against enemies below 35% health. So Unholy gets an Execute-style army upgrade. This is very fitting. Unholy does not simply fight you. Unholy waits until you are weak, then all of its friends start casting better spells. Very rude, very effective, very Death Knight. Chapter 2. Demon Hunter. Now we move to Demon Hunter. And as always, Demon Hunters looked at subtle gameplay and said, what if we jumped through it while on fire? Devourer, Demon Hunter. Devourer focuses on soul fragments, reap, consume, and soul burst. The 2-piece gives you a chance, after harvesting enough soul fragments with reap, to make your next consume instant and cause it to explode in cosmic damage around nearby enemies. Then the 4-piece makes soul burst generate more soul fragments and grants moment of craving, while also increasing reap damage. So this set seems to build a loop. Reap creates opportunity. Consume creates explosion. Soul burst creates more resources. Then reap hits harder. That sounds like a spec that wants to feed on momentum. And probably everything else in the room. Havoc, Demon Hunter. Havoc gets a more direct damage package. Blade Dance, Chaos Strike, and Essence Break deal more damage. Then Essence Break gets even more important. It applies and benefits from Cycle of Hatred, has increased initial strike damage, and lasts longer. This is not complicated, but it is focused. Havoc wants big, sharp windows where your core abilities feel stronger. And if Essence Break becomes more central to the rotation, Havoc players will likely be watching that timing very closely. Vengeance, Demon Hunter. Vengeance is all about Sigil of Flame. The 2-piece increases Sigil of Flame's damage over time, and Soul Cleave extends its duration on your main target. The 4-piece then causes Immolation Aura and Sigil of Spite to deal much more damage against enemies affected by your Sigil of Flame. This turns Sigil of Flame into the center of the Vengeance damage plan. Put the fire down, keep the enemy burning, then punish them harder for standing in it. Vengeance Demon Hunters continue to prove that tanking is just damage dealing with more responsibility and more fire. Chapter 3. Druid. Now we enter the forest. And the thing about Druids is this: they do not wear tier sets, they grow into them. Balance Druid. Balance starts with Star Surge dealing more damage, while Star Fall instantly deals astral damage to enemies when cast. Then the 4-piece creates a very interesting Eclipse effect. While in Eclipse, your damage is increased, but that bonus wanes toward the middle of the Eclipse, then waxes back up toward the end. That is very thematic, a true celestial rhythm. The moon rises, the sun fades, the power shifts. The chicken yells. Balance players may have to pay more attention to where they are inside their Eclipse window, which could make the spec feel more dynamic or more stressful. Possibly both. Feral Druid. Feral is all about Berserk and Incarnation. When Berserk or Incarnation ends, you gain increased damage based on how many combo points you spent during that window. So the better you use your burst window, the better your follow-up damage becomes. Then the 4-piece makes Berserk and Incarnation last longer. That means Feral is being rewarded for commitment. You enter the frenzy, you spend combo points, and when the frenzy ends, the claws are still sharp. There is also a developer note that one specific talent combination gets its bonus duration reduced, because otherwise it could become too strong and hurt build diversity. That is worth watching. Whenever a set bonus gets a special note like that, it usually means someone tested it and the numbers started making nervous faces. Guardian Druid. Guardian gets a very bear-flavored set. Thrash has a chance to make your next Mangle deal much more damage. Then the 4-piece causes Thrash to call up thorns that damage targets and nearby enemies, while also extending Berserk slightly, up to a cap. This sounds good for AoE, good for theme, and good for making Guardian feel more active. Thrash already feels central to Bear gameplay, so having it trigger Thorns and extend Berserk makes sense. The Bear is not just surviving, the Bear is becoming the forest's problem. Restoration Druid. Restoration gets Genesis. Rejuvenation has a chance to grant it, and nature's swiftness always grants it. Genesis causes your heal over time effects to heal for more for a short time, and multiple applications may overlap. Then the 4-piece extends Genesis and causes it to grant clear casting. This is very Restoration Druid. More hot power, more overlap, more efficient casting. Restoration Druids will likely be looking at how often Genesis procs, how much it overlaps, and how it lines up with healing damage patterns. In simple terms, more green numbers. And sometimes that is all the tree asks for. Chapter 4. Evoker. Now we arrive at Evoker. Dragons, time magic, healing flames, and the constant suspicion that someone is about to press a button with 4 different effects attached to it. Augmentation. Evoker Augmentation begins with Upheaval's cooldown being reduced. Then the 4-piece causes Upheaval to magnify Fate mirror effects, increasing the amount of damage echoed for a short period. That is very Augmentation. You are not simply dealing damage, you are making other people's damage more meaningful, then quietly taking credit on the meters. This set looks like it reinforces Augmentation's support identity while giving Upheaval a stronger role. Devastation Evoker. Devastation gets a huge Shattering Star upgrade. Its damage is increased significantly, and it always casts as if it reached maximum Empower level. Then Causality reduces Empower spell cooldowns a little more whenever it triggers, and Eternity Surge deals more damage. This feels like a smoother Empower spell engine. More Shattering Star impact, more cooldown flow, more Eternity Surge value. Devastation Evokers may feel like their major buttons are coming around just a little more often. And when dragons get their major buttons more often, everyone else should duck. Preservation Evoker. Preservation gets a bonus tied to Essence Burst and Living Flame. Consuming Essence Burst sends a living flame toward your target, or toward a nearby injured ally if the main target is already healthy. Then the 4-piece makes green spells heal more, and gives Verdant Embrace a guaranteed chance to grant Essence Burst. This is a nice healing loop. Verdant Embrace helps generate Essence Burst. Essence Burst fuels extra Living Flame healing. Green healing becomes stronger overall. Preservation already has a unique rhythm, and this set seems to lean into that without trying to reinvent it. Chapter 5. Hunter. Now we move to Hunter. Beasts, bullets, bombs, and the eternal question, did my pet pull that? Yes, it did. Beast Mastery Hunter. Beast Mastery gets more stomp interaction. Barbed Shot causes your pets to stomp 1 additional time at reduced effectiveness. Then Stomp causes your next Cobra Shot to either benefit from Beast Cleave at reduced effectiveness or hit your main target harder, stacking several times. So Beast Mastery is being pushed deeper into pet-driven damage and Cobra Shot follow-up. This sounds like it could feel good in both cleave and single target, depending on how the bonus chooses its effect. And thematically, it works. You shoot, the beasts stomp. You shoot again, the beasts continue making questionable noise. Marksmanship Hunter. Marksmanship gets stronger explosive shot. It lasts longer and deals more damage. Then the 4-piece increases aimed shot and rapid fire damage, while each burst from explosive shot reduces the cooldown of aimed shot and rapid fire. That creates a nice loop. Explosive shot is no longer just a damage button. It helps bring your big shots back faster. This may make marksmanship feel more active and more explosive, which is appropriate, because the ability is literally called Explosive Shot. Survival Hunter. Survival is more direct. Raptor Strike deals more damage. Then Mongoose Fury also increases Wildfire Bomb damage. This keeps survival focused on its melee and bomb identity. You strike, you build fury, you throw bombs. Survival hunters remain the only people in Azeroth who looked at a bow and said, "No thank you, I would rather stand closer to the explosion." Chapter 6. Mage. Now, mages. Mages are calm, scholarly people, until reality disagrees with them. Then they start rewriting it in fire, frost, and arcane missiles. Arcane Mage. Arcane Missiles fires an additional missile and deals more damage. Then each wave of arcane missiles increases the damage of your next arcane blast, arcane pulse, or prismatic bolt, stacking up to a cap. This gives arcane missiles a stronger builder identity. Missiles become more than damage, they become setup. The more waves you fire, the harder your next major arcane hit becomes. Arcane players like planning, stacking, and spending at the correct moment. This set says, good, do more of that. Fire Mage. Fire gets a very spicy Pyroclasm package. Pyroclasm causes Flame Strike and Pyroblast to always critically strike. Then the 4-piece reduces their cast time and increases the damage bonus. This is very Fire Mage. Crits, faster casts, bigger fire. Fire Mages looked at the entire room and said, this could use a little more dramatic lighting. The big thing to watch here will be how often Pyroclasm is available and how smooth the timing feels. Because guaranteed critical Pyroblasts are not subtle. They are announcements. Frost Mage. Frost gets more Icicle and Glacial Spike interaction. Freezing Shattered has a chance to generate an Icicle, and Glacial Spike deals more damage. Then, consuming Glacial Spike has a small chance to grant another Glacial Spike, while Shatter damage is increased. This sounds like Frost being rewarded for leaning into its big spike moments. More Icicles, stronger Glacial Spike, stronger Shatter. Simple? Mostly. Effective? Potentially very. Annoying for enemies trying to move? Always. Chapter 7. Monk. And now, friends, we arrive at the important chapter, the sacred chapter. The chapter in which Blizzard looked upon Brewmaster Monk and said, what if the keg was on fire? Brewmaster Monk. Brewmaster's 2-piece causes Breath of Fire to ignite your next keg smash. That ignited keg smash explodes on contact, dealing additional fire damage to the primary target and reduced damage to nearby targets. Now listen, I am a simple Pandaren. I see Breath of Fire, I see keg smash. I see explosion. I approve. The 4-piece makes ignited keg smashes cause enemies struck to take increased damage from your physical abilities. It also leaves a patch of flames on the ground, dealing fire damage each second for a short time. This is excellent class fantasy. You breathe fire, ignite the keg, smash it into the enemy, weaken them to your physical attacks, and leave the ground burning. That is not just a tier set. That is Tavern engineering. Gameplay-wise, this could be very interesting. It gives Brewmaster a stronger offensive loop and makes Breath of Fire feel like setup for a bigger keg smash moment. It also gives Brewmaster a visual identity that should be very satisfying in AoE. The big questions will be timing and tuning. How often can you ignite keg smash? How strong is the fire patch? How valuable is the increased physical damage taken? And most importantly, can I call this responsible tanking? The answer is yes, because I am holding the keg. Mistweaver Monk. Mistweaver gets bonuses around Rising Sun Kick and Rushing Wind Kick. The 2-piece increases Rising Sun Kick damage and greatly increases Rushing Wind Kick healing. Then the 4-piece gives Rising Sun Kick and Rushing Wind Kick a chance to make the next cast ignore its cooldown and cost no mana. That sounds fun. This leans into the more active, kick-based Mistweaver style. You heal by moving, striking, flowing, and occasionally kicking the problem directly in the face, as one does. Windwalker Monk. Windwalker gets Fists of Fury bonuses. The 2-piece makes Fists of Fury strike an additional time at the start of the channel at reduced effectiveness. Then the 4-piece causes Fists of Fury to increase the damage of your next Rising Sun Kick or Spinning Crane Kick each time it strikes, stacking several times. This is a strong rotational idea. Fists of Fury becomes setup. After channeling, you choose your payoff. Single target, Rising Sun Kick. AoE, Spinning Crane Kick. It gives Windwalker a clear bridge between one major ability and the next. Very clean, very martial, very please do not stand near the spinning monk. Chapter 8. Paladin. Now we step into the light, carefully, because sometimes the light heals you, and sometimes it arrives as a hammer. Holy Paladin. Holy Paladin gets stronger, infusion of light value. The 2-piece makes infusion improve flash of light healing and greater judgment absorption by a much larger amount. Then the 4-piece gives judgment and holy light chances to grant infusion of light. So holy gets more ways to trigger infusion and more value when it happens. This is a good example of a set bonus reinforcing an existing mechanic. It does not ask Holy to become something else. It asks Holy to care more about something it already uses. Protection Paladin. Protection gets a larger consecration, and enemies inside it become illuminated, increasing your chance to critically strike them. Then, enemies hit by Judgment or Crusader Strike take extra holy damage, and that bonus becomes much larger if they are struck by a critical strike. This is a very Protection Paladin design. Stand in the Holy Circle. Make enemies regret standing in the Holy Circle. Judge them. Strike them. Then judge them again for good measure. The larger consecration is especially interesting because it could make positioning feel more forgiving and more powerful. Retribution Paladin. Retribution gets more divine purpose. The 2-piece gives Divine Purpose an additional chance to activate, and consuming it grants Divine Power, increasing holy damage for a short time. Then the 4-piece creates a payoff when Divine Purpose is consumed with Divine Storm. Your next final verdict becomes free and unleashes Divine Arbiter damage at the target and nearby enemies. This sounds flashy. Retribution is getting more proc flow, more holy damage, and more big golden judgment energy, which is very on-brand. Paladins call it justice. Enemies call it very bright trauma. Chapter 9. Priest. Now we move to Priest, a class that reminds us faith can heal the wounded, protect the weak, and occasionally summon something with far too many tentacles. Discipline Priest. Discipline gets stronger penance. Penance damage and healing are increased, and casting penance reduces the cooldown of Mind Blast. Then, after casting Mind Blast, your next power word Shield or Void Shield absorbs more damage. This is classic discipline. Damage leads to protection. Offense leads to defense. You cast aggressively, and your shields become stronger because of it. Discipline often lives in that space between healer and damage dealer, and this set keeps it there. Holy Priest. Holy gets a Renew-focused set. Each target affected by your Renew increases your haste up to a cap. Then, Renew healing is increased, and Light's Resurgence causes Prayer of Mending to leave Renew on the first target it heals. That creates a simple but effective gameplay loop. Spread Renew, gain haste, heal faster, spread more Renew. Holy Priest players who enjoy steady, efficient healing may like this. It is not the flashiest set in the world, but not every strong set needs to kick down the door. Some simply light a candle and keep everyone alive. Shadow Priest. Shadow's set is built around Tentacle Slam. The 2-piece reduces its cooldown and increases its damage. Then, after casting Tentacle Slam, your next Vampiric Touch becomes instant, generates additional insanity, and summons shadowy apparitions that deal much more damage. This is very Shadow Priest. You press the tentacle button, then your next DOT becomes instant. Then ghostly horrors appear. Then someone asks if this is normal. And Shadow Priests say, define normal. This set sounds like it could make Tentacle Slam feel more central and more rewarding. The main thing to watch is how smooth that instant Vampiric Touch follow-up feels in real gameplay. Chapter 10. Rogue. Now we enter the shadows, quietly, because if you hear the rogue, it is already too late. Assassination Rogue. Assassination gets Envenom damage and a general damage increase tied to Envenom. Then the 4-piece adds poison-based interactions. Deadly Poison increases bleed damage on the target. Amplifying Poison causes auto-attacks to deal increased damage per stack. Wound Poison hits a second time. This is layered, very assassination. Bleeds, poisons, and repeated small sources of damage all working together. Assassination rogues do not defeat enemies quickly because they are in a rush. They defeat enemies because the enemy's body eventually realizes it has been outvoted by toxins. Outlaw Rogue. Outlaw starts with increased dispatch damage. Then, Sinister Strike and Ambush have a chance to make your next dispatch free, and deal damage as if you spent maximum combo points. This is straightforward and probably fun. Outlaw likes procs. Outlaw likes chaos. Outlaw likes pressing a button and discovering whether it was a good idea afterward. A free max power dispatch fits that fantasy well. Subtlety Rogue. Subtlety gets cheaper, stronger backstab, and Shuriken Storm. Then Lingering Shadow also benefits Eviscerate and Black Powder at full effectiveness. This is a direct boost to builders and spenders. Subtlety is often about windows, planning, and making the right strike at the right moment. This set seems to sharpen that style, rather than change it. Rogues are simple people. They see a problem, they remove it from behind. Chapter 11. Shaman. Now we stand with the elements. Storm, flame, earth and rain. And as always, the shaman is not asking the elements for help. The shaman is negotiating loudly. Elemental Shaman. Elemental gets stronger Earth Shock, Elemental Blast, and Earthquake. Then, when Stormkeeper or Ascendance fades, your next few lightning bolts, chain lightnings or lava bursts deal more damage and cause your next Earthquake, Earth Shock or Elemental Blast to cost no Maelstrom. This is interesting because it gives Elemental a follow-up after major cooldowns fade. Instead of all the power ending when the cooldown ends, you get extra empowered spells afterward. That helps with the consistency goal. The storm does not simply stop, it echoes. Enhancement Shaman. Enhancement gets Voltaic Blaze, causing the primary target to erupt in Fire Nova repeatedly. Fire Nova also deals much more damage if it only hits one target. Then, Fire Nova reduces the cooldown of Crash Lightning and increases the damage of your next Crash Lightning, stacking several times. This sounds very satisfying. Fire Nova feeds Crash Lightning. Crash Lightning becomes stronger. Enemies wonder why the melee shaman is suddenly producing weather and explosions. Enhancement remains one of the most visually chaotic specs in the game, and this set seems to lean into that beautifully. Restoration Shaman. Restoration gets Healing Rain support. Healing Wave and Chain Heal have a chance to create Healing Rain at the target's location. Then, every second, an ally inside Healing Rain gains a watery shield that absorbs damage. This is a strong positional healing identity. Restoration Shamans already love placing healing zones. This gives that zone additional protective value. If the group stands in the rain, they are rewarded. If they do not stand in the rain, well, the shaman tried. The rest is between them and the repair bill. Chapter 12. Warlock. Now we come to Warlock. Bargains written in ash, pets with questionable loyalty, and resources that may or may not be screaming. Affliction Warlock. Affliction gets a chance to refund a soul shard after spending one. Then, active unstable afflictions increase your damage up to a cap, and Seed of Corruption applies a weaker unstable affliction to your target. This gives affliction more shard efficiency and more value from maintaining unstable affliction. It also helps connect AoE and single target pressure through Seed of Corruption. Affliction is about pressure, not a single explosion, not one massive hit, just endless, miserable inevitability. Very Warlock. Demonology Warlock. Demonology gets stronger Wild Imps and stronger Implosion. Then, when Wild Imps run out of energy, they have a chance to fling themselves at the target and implode at increased effectiveness. This is ridiculous. I love it. Demonology has always been about managing a small army of chaotic little problems. Now, some of those problems may decide to throw themselves at the enemy on the way out. That is not just a tier bonus, that is workplace culture. Destruction Warlock. Destruction gets stronger Incinerate and a better chance to evoke Echo of Sargeras. Then, targets damaged by Echo of Sargeras take increased damage from Echo of Sargeras for a short time. This seems to build around repeated Echo value. Incinerate becomes more important, Echo happens more often, and Echo damage can stack into itself. Destruction Warlocks are not subtle. They are not trying to be. They are here to turn the health bar into a memory. Chapter 13. Warrior. And finally, Warrior. No tricks, no bargains, no celestial math, just steel, rage, and the certainty that the shortest distance between 2 points is a charge. Arms Warrior. Arms get stronger Mortal Strike, and Slam also damages nearby enemies around the target. Then Overpower deals more damage, and Mortal Strike and Overpower increase the damage of your next Slam, stacking several times. This makes Slam more important. That is interesting because Slam is not always the most exciting button, but this set gives it more purpose. Mortal Strike and Overpower build it up, then Slam cashes in. Very clean, very Arms. Hit hard, hit deliberately, hit again. Fury Warrior. Fury gets stronger Raging Blow. During Recklessness, Raging Blow extends the duration of Recklessness up to a cap. Then Bloodthirst deals more damage, and during Recklessness, Bloodthirst increases the critical strike bonus of Recklessness up to a cap. So Fury gets more Recklessness value, longer Recklessness, stronger Recklessness, more critical strike during Recklessness. This is exactly what Fury wants. Fury Warriors do not need a complicated explanation. They need a red bar, 2 weapons, and permission. Protection Warrior. Protection gets stronger free revenges, and those free revenges empower your next shield slam. Then Ravager and free revenges cause targets to bleed over time, and Ravager's cooldown is reduced. This gives protection more damage over time, more Ravager uptime, and stronger revenge to shield slam flow. Protection Warrior remains the classic shield tank, but now with more bleeding. Because apparently being hit by a shield the size of a door was not enough. So, what do we learn from all of this? First, Blizzard seems serious about making these Season 2 tier sets more complex than Season 1. Not every bonus is complicated, but many of them add a loop. One ability empowers another. One cooldown creates a follow-up window. One proc makes the next spender matter more. Second, many bonuses support existing class identity. Brewmaster gets Flaming Kegs. Frost Death Knight gets more Remorseless Winter. Balanced Druid gets Eclipse Rhythm. Demonology gets more Imp nonsense. Protection Paladin gets a bigger Consecration. Restoration Shaman gets more Healing Rain value. These are not random effects. Most of them feel like extensions of what the specs already want to do. Third, this supports the idea of more consistent damage. A lot of these sets are not just press cooldown, explode the boss. Instead, they reward rotational flow. They reward follow-up. They reward steady uptime. That may make Season 2 feel less spiky and more controlled, at least in theory, because players are very creative people. And by creative, I mean they will absolutely find a way to turn something into a burst window. Fourth, tanks are getting some nice offensive identity. Blood gets empowered death and decay. Vengeance gets stronger fire and sigil synergy. Guardian gets thorns and mangle boosts. Brewmaster gets flaming keg smash. Protection Paladin gets larger Consecration and Holy damage follow-up. Protection Warrior gets Bleeds and Ravager cooldown reduction. That is good. Tanks should not just feel like damage sponges. They should feel like dangerous problems with defensive cooldowns. Now, if I had to pick the sets I am most curious to watch, these are the ones. Brewmaster Monk, obviously, because Flaming Keg Smash may be one of the most flavorful tier bonuses in the entire list. Frost Death Knight, because Remorseless Winter becoming faster and more central could feel very smooth. Balanced Druid, because the Eclipse damage bonus, waxing and waning, is unusual and very thematic. Fire Mage, because guaranteed critical pyroblasts and flame strikes are never something to ignore. Protection Paladin, because a larger Consecration with Holy damage synergy could feel very strong in dungeons. Demonology Warlock, because imps flinging themselves into enemies is exactly the kind of nonsense I respect. And Enhancement Shaman, because Fire Nova feeding Crash Lightning sounds like beautiful elemental chaos. So there it is, friends, the 12.1 Midnight Season 2 tier set bonuses. Some are simple, some are elegant, some are strange, some are probably going to change, and some leave fire on the ground and call it responsible tanking. But each one tells us something about where Blizzard may be taking class design in Season 2. More flow, more spec identity, more consistency, and perhaps, just perhaps, a little more fun. Now I want to hear from you. Which tier set looks the strongest? Which one looks the most fun? Which one do you think is getting changed before release? And most importantly, are we calling Flaming Keg Smash a defensive strategy? Because I am. Until next time, keep your brews warm, your weapons ready, and remember, not every bonus is just a number. Sometimes it is a warning, and sometimes it is a keg. This video is a fan-made discussion and commentary project. World of Warcraft and all related names, classes, abilities and concepts belong to Blizzard Entertainment and their respective rights holders. This video is not official, not canon, and is intended for entertainment, commentary and discussion only. Thank you for watching Midnight with Someguy. I will see you next time, friends.